In partnership with WYTV7 Christian Broadcasters Network, this is When Men Open Up, a show where we are redefining manhood through transparency. My name is Dominique Bond.
And I'm Dexter Peggins.
Man, Dexter, I've been, every time we have a topic, especially the last few topics we done had, I done done a lot of research with my preparation and everything, and you just never know what you're gonna come in contact with, what you're gonna read, what you're gonna find out. And we didn't even did our due diligence with actually speaking with other people and getting their feedback and getting their opinions and so forth. And you learn a lot. You think you come in knowing a particular subject or topic, and you just know so much. But the topic for today is embarrassing the shame my son is gay. Mm-hmm. And this is continuing the series of My Brother's My Brother's Killer. Mm-hmm. And this is tied off of My Brother's Keeper. Yeah. And we done went in depth with, explaining what it means to be my brother's keeper. And we didn't, our last topic was our biases toward gay men, and we done went into that as well. So we did have a funny conversation about this topic. We just thought that this would be a good topic to discuss. But let's get right into it, man. I just want to open up with this question. This is one of the biggest fears for a lot of fathers. Yeah. When you go into the barbershops, you have these conversations, and we'll say, man, my son will never be gay. Not my son. I'm gonna keep this away from my son. Anything that may make him go left, that's not gonna have anything affiliated with my son. And you have a lot of men who are have strong feelings and emotions about this. Exactly. But why do fathers struggle with this?
Man, this is a hard one, and even in preparing for this, for these last two conversations, man, it really caused me to examine some of the things, my own biases, my own prejudices and stuff, things that I thought that, I maybe progressed past and maybe, took a more optimistic outlook on, when we decided to go in this direction, I was like, man, I still kind of deal with some of those same prejudices that I had, growing up. But I'll tell you, one of the things in preparing for this and having friends who are in this situation as far as, their children, one of the things that really came to my mind is fathers really struggle in this area. I believe because in many cases it's similar to a death, and I know that might sound really extreme. So, let me explain it this way. As a parent, oftentimes what we do is we create an image of our children.
Exactly.
I'm the father of two young sons, and even right now I have an image of the future, them being successes, while I might not know what career, I see them as successful men. I see them married, with children and coming, and visiting me and my wife, Right. There's this image that I already have about my children in their future. Mm-hmm. And the thing about, why I believe fathers often really struggle with this whole situation and what we're talking about today is because it's now a death of the image that they've created. Once again, my sons are young, but imagine if your son is, in his late teens, right. 20s, 30s, you've been allowing this image to grow over decades. And now when they're coming forward and saying, hey, this is who I am, this is, I'm admitting that, mm-hmm. I'm gay, it now is a total contradiction to the image.
Most definitely.
And so when they tell you that, what it is that you have to now allow that image to die, but you don't want to. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that you see the walking, living son, but the image is not consistent with what you had imagined, right. There's this grieving process. and on a very just laying out there as plain as I can. I really believe that is the root of what a lot of fathers deal with when they come to the realization that their son is gay. Yeah. They don't always know how to put it in those words, but I've had enough conversations with men who are in this predicament where that's what it really sounds like, because there's just like that grieving process, when they talk about the acceptance, the denial, denial, acceptance, anger, all of that. There's that cycle that's going on when you're coming to terms with the fact that your son is a gay man.
It's funny because when you mentioned that, that made me think about my father. And he used to always tell my brother and I, you represent me. You're a representation of me. When you go out, yeah. You reflect me, and that's a very loaded and weighty statement and idea or mindset to have towards your child. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Yeah. You get what I'm saying? It's just that there is that grief and there is that disappointment. So now when you reflect something that I'm not proud of, True. You get what I'm saying?
I do.
Now that's when that disappointment comes in. We want to really focus on the mindset and what's really circulating in the father's mind real quick, and then we'll go into another direction as well. But it's not always when a son finally comes out, he's not just saying, hey, I'm gay all the time. He's also adding on to other things as well. So it's in many cases it's okay, I'm gay, but this X, Y, and Z is well. So it's already a lot to take in when you hear that your son is gay. Yeah. But to learn about other things as well is very weighty. If the son is taking, let's just say the son finally comes out and he's spending 5 minutes. 5 minutes may seem like a very small number, but that's a long time with spilling out everything that he's been holding in. So now it's like bam, 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 bam. And it's like, hold on, it's a lot. So this becomes very overwhelming. It's a shock to many of the fathers. But in one aspect, one of the reasons that it's just a huge struggle is it's a barrier to their idea of masculinity.
Exactly.
And sometimes that's due to the conservative views or the traditional views or based upon your spiritual religious beliefs about homosexuality. So sometimes I think some fathers, they get so tied into this is wrong, you get what I'm saying, that it's hard for them to support. You get what I'm saying? So now, since I just know that this is wrong and this is my son as well, I don't know how I can really accept this.
That's interesting because you're kind of picking out one vantage point, right. When there's many different, this is layered,
It's very layered.
I think one of the things that fathers deal with is their own stigmas, what I'm saying? Like now your son is labeled, the gay son,
right.
And you're almost factoring in public perception for your son as it relates to him being your child, not so much the fact that what his own experience is you're anticipating how his experience is now impacting your own social standing, and I know men who have a tendency to question, was there something that they did to create that in their own child, and they look at it like, well, maybe did I fail in some capacity, which is another layer to the whole situation. So now you're, now you're addressing these own inner concerns, these own inner stigmas, And then plus, you know, at the end of the day, even as fathers, we're still protectors, you know. And so now you add on the extra concern of your own son's safety and well-being. You know, not only the physical safety, but also, you know, what they'll have to endure as far as society is concerned, you know, whether it be the physical abuse, the verbal abuse, you know, so these become, you know, just layers upon layers of things that now you're having to reconcile in those moments when your son is revealing this to you. And then not only in the moments that he's revealing it to you, but life after this conversation.
Most definitely. It's, you know, what are other people going to think? You know, I'm embarrassed, not just because you are gay, but I'm embarrassed because of how other people are going to look at you as well. So now if they see I have a gay son, now they're going to look at me as, you know, what are they going to think of me as a father? You know, man, you done raised a gay son. You get what I'm saying? And people are that spiteful. You get what I'm saying? People really do look down on you based upon, you know, the development of your child. And that's something that they do regulate in their minds. What are other people going to think? It's crazy because I looked at a video recently, and the son, he said he opened up to his mother first, and he said he took a long time to open up to her. And then eventually he opened up to his father. He said that, you know, there was some resistance with his father, but in within the video, all three of them was there. But one thing that the father shared to the son and to his wife is that, you know, he thought so much about what other people was thinking about him and about his son. And he said that became overwhelming to him because there was other things that he shared as well, that he was thinking about committing suicide. And it was so overwhelming for him based upon his own beliefs and so forth. And he shared, you know, in the beginning, you know, he just really regretted. He said, you know, it was just silly for him to even have those thoughts now with what he knows now. There was another video that I viewed, and this video actually went viral, of a soldier overseas making a phone call to his father. Keep in mind, this man looked like he's in his late 20s, maybe in his early 30s, and he just basically just said, "Hey, Dad, I just want to call you and talk to you, and I just want to let you know that I'm gay." And the first thing that he said after that is, "Do you still love me?" You know, and then another thing that he said after that is, "Are you okay?" You know, and I think that was his way of knowing, okay, his views may be like this, so let me see how he's really regulating this, how he's really taking this in. But it's a big deal. You know, it really is a big deal that we're having this conversation. Because I looked at the Pew Research Center, and they said 4 in 10 say they have opened up to their father. So that means so many, over half of people have not opened up to their fathers just because of our beliefs, our conservative views and so forth, our understandings and so forth. And that was shocking to me, man. That was very shocking.
Man, I tell you, you know, and this is serious because, you know, I personally know people who've been disowned by their family.
Yes.
You know, and you know, I can't think of many things in life that are more tragic than your own family alienating themselves from you. And once again, you know, we disagree, but at the end of the day, there still has to be some common ground. And the fact that you're still my family should, I would hope it outweighs, you know, personal grievances, personal beliefs and things like that. But the reality is that, you know, who do you turn to, you know, when your family disowns you? You know, one of the things about what we shared last week, which was very, for lack of better words, I think it was quite powerful. You know, we had some people reach out to us, kind of share some things. You know, one person said, you know, they never expected us to talk about this. But you know, talking along these subject lines, and it's we as when men open up the show, we understand that one of the things we want to do is we want to create grounds where we start having these conversations.
Right.
You know, whether you agree, whether you disagree, these conversations are still warranted because men, in many cases, struggle with this.
Right.
So once again, you know, you're talking about an individual who's concealed a part of their life for fear of being rejected by those who are supposed to love them the most, you know. And so we still have to be able to have these conversations, you know, good, bad, or indifferent. And from these conversations, you know, we need to identify how do we move forward, you know.
Most definitely.
And the tragedy is, like I said, a lot of times we don't know how to move forward because we're not having these conversations. And so once again, you know, I never want to hear about somebody being disowned because of, like I said, because you just disagree with the lifestyle. You know, at the end of the day, that's still your child. And, you know, what are you saying when you say this person no longer exists to me? You know, that feels a little heavy. And I know I'm looking at it from the outside looking in. That's not my experience. But I do want to be empathetic to the fact that people deal with this on an everyday basis, which really also heightens a lot of the suicidal rates that we see amongst, you know, men, because they're dealing with these issues. And when they finally muster up the courage and the ability to talk about it, you know, they're shot down.
Right, and we're not trying to speak on their behalf or anything like that, but we really do believe that we have to have these conversations, and hopefully we're encouraging other people to have these conversations as well. And this is something, you know, you speaking of this disowning, this is something that you usually hear about during the holidays. You know, some people, you know, they dread coming back, or they avoid coming back home because, you know, I can't bring my partner, or if I do bring my partner, then, you know, that's just gonna cause a ruckus or whatever the case may be. And it is sad and unfortunate that, you know, some people have to go through that. But, you know, we do understand that it's not going to be easy, you know, especially if you've been having these views, if you've been brought up a certain way in society, you know, this is not going to always be easy to you. But when your son does come out, I think one of the biggest things we need to really focus on is supporting and not focusing on whether you believe what they're doing or their life is wrong or right. Because now what we're doing is it's becoming more about judging the person or judging your child and not supporting your child. I think we still struggle, you know, with the supporting. You know, if I support this, then this means that I agree with this and so forth.
Exactly.
You know, at the end of the day, supporting is love. You know, it's all about just loving the child. You get what I'm saying? And take time out to actually process what's really going on. It's not going to take a few minutes, a few hours, a few days, and so forth. But if you really just take time out and really hear him out and really take time out to understand, I think that's the thing. We're saying to have these conversations for understanding. Exactly. And I believe that a lot of this anger, a lot of this frustration, a lot of this guilt and so forth, disappointment is really just due to a misunderstanding and a lack of focus on the child and the child's needs.
You know, I believe these words are synonymous with each other, but I know that they don't necessarily hold the same meaning across the board. But like you're saying, acceptance and agreement, I don't believe they're one and the same. You know, I can accept you while still disagreeing with you. And at the end of the day, beyond that, if I accept you, we still have to identify how do we move forward. And that's what you're talking about. You know, I got this loved one, this person, my son, and, you know, he's sharing these things with me. You know, I don't agree with it, but he's still my child. Right. You know, and so how do I show him that I still love him? You know what I'm saying? Even though I don't agree. And I think a lot of times because we don't know how to hold that tension between the two things, we just outright drop the relationship. And we owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to our sons to be more resilient in the relationship, as opposed to saying, well, you know, they made this choice and, you know, go to hell or whatever. You know, it has to be something more sustaining than just that.
Most definitely. And again, I want to keep re-emphasizing this. It's going to take time. Once again, if you're still, you know, battling with this, it's going to take time. But I want to get back to the disagreeing part, because sometimes we can still allow our disagreement to become a barrier.
Yeah.
And I don't want our disagreement towards our views, you know, to become a barrier. I think sometimes we are battling whether we agree and disagree to the point where we don't love the person. Because we're battling and we're trying to juggle whether we agree or disagree. Now we have the question: how do I love the person?
Yeah.
How do I love my child? And it shouldn't be like that. So when we admit that, okay, I have this disagreement, but how do I love the person? I think that's a struggle within itself, and I think that's something we have to really dive into. You get what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, we're still speaking to a bias. We're highlighting a bias because because you have already highlighted there's a disagreement. And then when the father is saying, you know what, I just don't know how to go about doing this. Well, you just go about it the same way you've been doing it. You get what I'm saying?
Like that.
You know, you focus on the child's needs.
Yeah.
You hear the child out. You support the child. You have the child's back. And most importantly, I think we have to really be sensitive to how we react and respond to things, because as parents, we want our children to open up to everything in the perfect world, to everything, knowing that may not always be the case. But if we respond in a very negative manner, and let's just say we slipped up the first time, that's fine. You can go back and say, hey, you know, because of my views, because this was just too much on me to take in at one time, this is the way I responded. But you know what? I want to have some understanding. The floor is yours. Let me have some understanding of how I can support you, how I can love you. What do you need? You get what I'm saying? Because we can still allow our views to get in the way of love and what we're doing is we're having this strings attached to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's no longer unconditional love. You know, I love you to an extent. You get what I'm saying? So I don't really want, you know, a lot of the guys to get it confused because, okay, you disagree. But brothers, it's a lot. I disagree with the shoes you got on. You know what I'm saying? But it shouldn't be a resistance for us to connect. Yeah. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and like man, I think we can walk that dog 1,000 times, man. And once again, I love how you said that. You know, the disagreement becomes the barrier, and a lot of relationships have ended because of a disagreement. And it wasn't meant to end, you know, it was just meant to get that understanding. But once again, the responsibility of a parent is to love unconditionally.
Most definitely.
You know, and so if we find ourselves as fathers placing conditions on our love, then once again, we have to get back to a place where we examine our own motives. And you know, and I started this whole dialogue off by saying that I really believe that a lot of this speaks to our own insecurities as men.
Yeah.
You know, it's not so much, you know, consequently, the compassion should go to the child first. But I believe in this instant, the first mind is, how will I be perceived with having this gay son? You know, and we have to reconcile the fact that at the end of the day, this is my child's decision. And because they're still my child, I will love them unconditionally. Right. And then we will together we'll face these whatever these barriers and these obstacles are. We'll face them at a later time.
Most definitely.
You know.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because we have to be conscious and aware of how are we allowing outsiders to interfere with our relationship, within our family. You get what I'm saying? And
well, let me say this. I don't mean to cut you off. Sometimes it's not always the outside perception. It's just, once again, what you hold as unbreakable truths.
right,
And now you're trying to reconcile it because now it's your own experience.
most definitely.
And so, if you've been very dogmatic with this belief and now it's in your household, a lot of times what it is that you're fighting your own beliefs. And because you don't know how to pull back the layers, how to look at things subjectively and objectively, what ends up happening is that you end up once again severing that relationship with your child, because your views are so rigid to the point that you can't love this child beyond what you perceive to be the norm.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that. Sometimes we can't allow what other people may think or say to interfere, and whether you're out with your child or not, sometimes we may feel some type of way because we are regulating or maybe trying to figure out or valuing other people's views on your son and on your relationship. I think another thing we have to really be conscious of is how we are viewing homosexuality when it comes down to your son. So we view it as a problem that we must change. Now, sometimes with some men, the relationship can really take a big shift and a big swing. So now it goes to, I had to change my child. You get what I'm saying? And that can really shift the relationship, because now it's, well, you're just going through a phase. This is just going, you're just confused, and everything the child say, you're not really taking serious. You get what I'm saying? And you're not valuing what the child's thoughts and what the child is saying, and so forth and so forth. But see, if we get so caught up with just trying to change the child, that's a resistance, and that's a barrier as well. Because now every time the child is trying to speak with you and have a connection with you, it's going to a point where you're always in a counselor role, or you're always in okay, I have to change, I have to shift, I have to do these things in order for my child to finally change his behavior, his lifestyle, and so forth. So I think we have to be conscious of that, focus on loving the child. And if we get caught up with trying to change the child, that's going to really interfere with the type of relationship that you're going to have with the child.
Yeah, man, why you keep doing this, man? And so, because once again, you got to look at that. Take a wider look at that. As a father, one of the things I understand that my role in raising my boys is that I'm supposed to be an influence to them. Now, in being an influence to them, I have to also accept the fact that they are responsible for their decisions. Be instrumental in the decision-making process. You can, but once again, the child, we as individuals, we have free choice.
Right.
I just want to be an influence, for your choices, but I'm not going to tell you what to do. You know what I'm saying? At some point in time, you have to be able to make your own decisions and stand by your own convictions.
Most definitely. Man, I'm really enjoying this topic. I hope that other people will join in on the conversation. And if you think that we should have mentioned some other things and mentioned some other ideas and topics and so forth, please give us some feedback. Please put anything in the comment section, inbox us, email us whenmenopenup@gmail.com. And if you enjoyed this broadcast, please share it with someone that you believe that should join in on the conversation, and think that they'll get something from this. Is there anything else you wanted to share?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, look, when we sit down and we discuss future topics for the show, when we looked at last week and when we looked at this week, we knew that this was going to be a difficult conversation, and so. We don't come on here, assuming that we speak for everybody, but we're mindful of the platform that we've been given. And so we just want to present it in such a way that, yes, it is a difficult conversation, but let's have the courage to have the conversation. A lot of times we choose to be oblivious to things, assuming that if we don't give it any attention, that it's not happening. And the reality is that these things are happening. There are people who are killing themselves, committing suicide because they have no outlet. They don't have anyone who's willing to hear them out. And so even though I might not agree with your convictions, on a human level, I should be able to connect with you to such a degree that, you feel like you can talk about these things, And so, that was the whole premise for, not just these last 2 weeks, but ultimately what we stand for as a show. We won't run away from difficult topics on the assumption of how people will perceive it. But ultimately, we want to create a space where men can open up transparently and talk about the things that need to be talked about.
Most definitely. And this is the platform. And if you all have any suggestions of some sensitive topics that we should discuss, please let us know. But I just want to reiterate that this is not a show where we want to attack anybody, but we do want to empower and influence people to have these conversations and further these conversations as well. Because at the end of the day, if we don't open up, there's not going to be any understanding. If there's no understanding, usually there's a lot of confusion and so forth. So we really appreciate you all supporting us with WYTV7 Christian Broadcasting Network. This is When Men Open Up, a show of redefining manhood through transparency. And if you have any upcoming events that you want us to participate in, please email us, please inbox us, whenmenopenup@gmail.com. And we've been having a whole lot of feedback and emails and so forth. And we just had, Dexter just told you about somebody just sharing a great story, and appreciating us for, going and just having these conversations. And please visit our website as well, whenmenopenup.com, whenmenopenup.com, and check out the website and just tell us what you think about that. But my name is Dominique Bond.
And I'm Dexter Peggers.
And we are out. Thank you so much for supporting us. We love you. Thank you.